What's going on, everyone? Anthony from Chronometer Check here, and today we're looking at possibly one of the coolest Seikos to ever exist. This is the Seiko Flightmaster, aka the Flighty, aka the reference SNA411. Now, right off the bat, you could see this extremely kind of technical and very complicated and busy looking dial. That's because this watch has a ton of different complications, more than you'll probably ever use, actually more than I use, including not only a chronograph, an alarm, and a slide rule bezel, which I don't even really know how to use because it's useful for pilots. In short, a slide rule bezel is necessary for different pilot calculations on the fly. Also has a tachymeter to measure speeds over distances. So in short, this is just a ton of value packed into a $200 to $300 Seiko. Prices have been jumping up a little bit, but if you can get it under $300, I definitely think it is a good value. Taking a closer look, as you can see, I have it on a kind of stretchy Marine Nationale style elastic strap just to match that pop of yellow on the chronograph secondhand with the stripe on the strap. And I think the olive green really plays into the military aesthetic of the watch very, very nicely. Now let's take a look at the specs, starting with the dimensions. So this has a 42mm case diameter with a 44mm lug-to-lug. Because the lug-to-lug is so close to the case diameter, you can see it kind of gives it that sort of boxy, almost square kind of shape, and the condensed lug-to-lug does make it wear very, very nicely on the wrist, nice and compact. So even if you do have a slightly smaller wrist, don't worry, this will be a relatively appropriately sized watch for you. And it is just 13mm thick, which is pronounced a little bit by the domed Hardlex crystal. Hardlex much better than typical mineral, but not quite as scratch resistant as sapphire. Regardless, I believe it does have some AR coating just because the reflections are very, very minimal. And typically with a domed acrylic crystal, you do tend to get a lot more. So coating or not, it's a very, very legible dial. Speaking of the dial, like I said, you could tell it's very, very complicated. There's a lot going on. So if you're into the kind of more technical kind of watches with a lot going on, a lot of features, then this may be a good option for you. However, if you kind of tend to prefer more minimal or more dressy styles, this is obviously something that you're not really going to be too attracted to. But I just love the true utilitarian look of it that not only has the look, but also the functions to back it up. So let's take a closer look. So right off the bat, you can see it has that kind of vertical tri-compax chronograph design with subdials at 12, 6, and 9. The subdial at 12 o'clock is to track the chronograph function up to 60 minutes. We'll get a little bit more into the chronograph in a minute. At the 6 o'clock, we have the alarm function. You could actually set an alarm for up to 12 hours, and then it sets off an amazingly piercing high-pitched noise that I just can't wait to turn off and just never use again, honestly. But it's cool that it's there. And then at 9 o'clock, you have the running second hand, because the main second hand is for the chronograph. Speaking of which, a nice little detail, thank you Seiko, we have screw down pushers on the chronograph. So not only does this complement the watch's 200 meters of water resistance, that's right, 200 meters of water resistance on a chronograph, pretty impressive, but it also does prevent you from kind of activating either of the pushers just by accident. So that's a really nice touch, and something that's really cool to have on a chronograph, something you don't see every day. Now, starting and stopping the chronograph is as simple as, pressing the pusher, which does have not the most tactile feel because this does have a quartz movement, specifically Seiko's quartz 7T62, with a sweeping chronograph, so no flyback. So as you can see, we stop the chronograph again by pressing the pusher once more, and then we can reset it with the bottom pusher. You can see it just sweeps back into place nicely. And then on the bezel, you could see a bunch of different sort of markings that kind of line up with the chapter ring inside. And this is a slide rule bezel that is used for all sorts of calculations. I mean, pilots use this typically to measure, all sorts of navigational and pilot calculations, like you can measure the airspeed, the rate and time of climb or descent, the flight time, distance, and fuel consumption. So you can kind of actually measure the amount of fuel that you're going to consume and how much you need to be prepared for the flight. So as you could tell, for someone like me who's just kind of a desk diver, desk warrior, or whatever you want to call me, I work at a computer. That's not extremely practical, but hey, it's really cool that it's there, and hey, I'd love to fly a plane one day. Although I'm pretty sure that's one of the few hobbies that are probably much more expensive than watches, and I think those are few and far between. My pockets are hurting. But I do believe it's one of those things where if you do, you know, really kind of daily wear this watch and you put in the time to use it, I think it does become extremely practical. Maybe not as much as kind of pulling out your phone and bringing in a calculation and getting the answer immediately, but there is a sort of sense of nostalgia and just a tactile feel, which is kind of like why we like watches to begin with. So let's throw this watch on the wrist and see how it wears. So on my 6.5-inch wrist, you could see it does wear a little bit on the larger side, but not, you know, comically large. It's not just overbearing and just taking over my wrist, but I think it actually looks really, really good. And that is in part largely due to the very, very condensed lug to lug. So it's not gonna overhang on most people's wrists. As you can see, my wrist is definitely not meaty by any means, but there's still plenty and plenty of room left before it overhangs. And I think that's the real metric for, you know, if a watch fits or not. So I think it looks great, and it's just one of those watches that's just super versatile in terms of, you know, whose wrist it could fit on. Not quite as versatile in terms of straps. I think this watch tends to look best on sort of, you know, NATO military style straps or old, worn, and kind of rugged looking leather straps to kind of give you that aged pilot kind of look. Now it does actually come on a stainless steel bracelet, but honestly, it is quite good. It does feel quite substantial. It has solid links. It has a nice deployment and everything, but I've just really been enjoying this style strap with it. I think it's just such a perfect fit, and it's super, super comfortable, so I've just been rocking it full time. But the bracelet, you know, you can definitely be sure that the bracelet it comes with is actually quite good compared to some other Seiko bracelets I've held. The clasp is just one of my few gripes with it, just because it is stamped and it feels a little bit flimsy, but in terms of its actual operation, it feels secure and quite tactile. The links are solid, just uses push pins, but I do really like it. It has high polished multi-link in the center with brushed finishing on the sides to kind of complement the case, with brushed finishing on the top and high polish on the side. So a really, really nice look overall. Quick loom shot. As you can see, it does have quite nicely applied loom in true Seiko fashion. Now, unfortunately, it's not the most largely applied loom. Like, there's not a ton of broad surfaces like on some of Seiko's dive watch, like the Seiko Monster or something. Why don't we do a comparison of that real quick? Seiko Monster, Seiko Flightmaster, Seiko Monster, Seiko Flightmaster. Which one do you think wins? Obviously not an apples to apples comparison. Seiko Monster is a purpose-built dive watch that is, you know, kind of designed to have more legible loom because you kind of need it when you're underwater, whereas obviously a pilot watch, it's not as necessary. Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot to tell you, I did buy a Seiko Monster Gen 1. That's for another video though. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Wrist check. Oh my god, this is just a Seiko day. This was not planned at all. This is all kind of ad hoc, but today I am wearing my Seiko Alpinist Glacier. Love this thing. It's just amazing, and it's kind of become my daily driver. But back to the Seiko Flightmaster, and to wrap things up, this is an excellent purpose-driven watch that is packed ton of features, including a chronograph, 200 meters of water resistance, an alarm, and even a slide rule bezel that is probably unnecessary for most people, but just super cool that it's there, and honestly fun to play with. This bezel just satisfying. And the Seiko Flightmaster sort of represents a flag in the ground of an unfortunate last of a dying breed of, you know, excellent Seiko value propositions when their watches are all just packed full of features, overbuilt, way better than any other watch in terms of what you get for the money in their price range. Unfortunately, that's becoming less and less the case as Seiko goes a little bit more upmarket, but you could still find these readily available. I'll put an affiliate link in the description below. I do get a small kickback, but you don't pay any extra for using that link. So feel free to check it out. And if the price is reasonable, the price does fluctuate between $200 to $350. I would say anything under $300 or around $300 is a solid price for this watch. And you know what, even though it comes well below $500, I think it's a great watch, even amongst $500 chronographs. So even within that price point, I actually did do a video of the best chronographs under $500. Feel free to check that out as well. Yes, the Seiko Flighty is included. It's just that great. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you did enjoy it. Let me know what you think about the Flightmaster in the comments below. Let me know if there's any other watches that you think I should review in the future. I'd be happy to take some requests. And subscribe if this is your first time to the channel for more watch reviews to come. Thanks for watching. Till next time.